Hello again, you're watching Good Morning Britain at 23 minutes past 8. It's very good to have you with us this morning. Former Beatle Paul McCartney has proved once again that when it comes to making a hit single, he definitely has that magic touch. With his latest single, My Brave Face, rushing up the charts, Paul spoke to Richard Keys about the Beatle influence in his new song.
I think it's a bit Beatley, really, in its influence. And I think that's because with working with Elvis Costello, a well-known friend of yours, he drew me towards that, you know.
How did that come about then?
Well, I was looking for someone to collaborate with, because obviously having collaborated with John in the early days, it's a great pleasure. You sit down to write a song, you do a line, he does a line, and the song lifts off, and you start to go to like a magic place neither of you thought you were going to. So it's great fun. And after John and I stopped writing and he moved to New York, I could write, you know, I'd do stuff like Maybe I'm Amazed and sort of Muller Kintyre, which are my solo things, in the same way as I used to do Yesterday, Long and Winding Road, you know. I didn't write everything with John. But at the same time, I still missed the sort of easiness of a collaborator, you know. It's lonely working on your own. So I was kind of looking around for someone to write with, and I'd written a couple of songs with Michael Jackson, which is nice, it's good fun, because he'd said, you know, let's write some hits. So he's very enthusiastic, so that was like, sure. But of course, you're not really talking about the skill as a songwriter that you are when you're talking about John. So I fancied the idea anyway, and it came up in conversation. Someone said, well, how about writing with Elvis Costello? I said, well, it might be an idea. So I met him, you know, wondering whether sort of, he's got a fairly sort of upfront sort of strong image, you know, hello, I'm him, and this is it, and he's quite direct with his opinions and stuff. And I wondered if we'd get on or if I'd just be put off by that. In actual fact, I found it to be a little bit of a sort of, you know, kind of quite a gentle person underneath the image and the glasses, which kind of reminded me of John a little bit, because John was a little bit like that, you know, yeah, but then he'd take his glasses down and he'd sort of be John, you know. And so we got on quite well, and wrote a couple of songs. I fixed up two of his that then appeared on his Spike album, his new album, Veronica and Pads, Paws and Floors. He fixed up one of mine, which appeared on a B-side. And then we finally got down to work and said, well, let's write one from scratch to see if we're really any good. And we ended up writing 9, 4 of which have got on the new album. So we had quite a good time.
It's an aged, and you've heard it 1,000 times, interviewer's line, but it's true this. I have read somewhere recently where you said working with Elvis was akin to working with John, the nearest you've been to a relationship with John.
Well, you know, that is true. And you've got to kind of theorize as to why. I think, number one, maybe he was a big Beatles fan, Elvis. So, as in the same way as I kind of model myself in some way on people like Little Richard and Elvis, I think Elvis has modelled himself a little bit on John. I don't know if that's true. I never sort of asked him, you know, but a suspicion that was true. And the glasses, you know, often people kind of, you know, Buddy Holly, John, Elvis, you kind of follow a trend. So there was that. And then there was the fact that he's like very opinionated, which, you know, puts some people off, but some people quite like that. I like that because there's a danger of me being yesed. You can say, oh, it's a lovely song, Paul. I love it, I love it. Bloody hell, I'm not going to tell him. You know, so there's a bit of a problem with that. So it's good to have someone say, no, we ought to do this.
Oh, interesting stuff, that.
Very good, yeah.
And just the record books, by the way, you see 3 more parts of that interview with Paul McCartney the week after next, and it's nice to see Richard putting him at his ease, isn't it?
It's a little bit...
The great man McCartney.
A little bit I picked out in the Mirror today, actually, talking about Paul. He's secretly, I'm not quite sure why secretly, but he's secretly chaired the first meeting aimed at setting up a Fame-type school for talented youngsters in Liverpool. So yeah, I used to enjoy watching Fame. Actually, it'd be great to have our very own Fame school in Liverpool, wouldn't it?
Just one reflection on Paul McCartney. I remember thinking, well, you know, they can't be that, can't be that talented. No, he's that talented. And then actually putting on one of the classic old Beatles albums, and there wasn't one make-weight number there.
No,
you said,
yeah,
they were that talented.
Yeah,
they are that talented. By the way, big happenings on the M5 near Gloucester.